Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with Moor Insights Strategy, and we are here for another episode of the 6-5 podcast. And I am here with my incredible co-host, Daniel Newman, who's in the middle of moving from Chi-Town to Austin. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, my friend. It's a Friday morning, last day here in the Chi-Town suburbs. Tomorrow morning, we load the truck. We are heading south, 17 hours over 2 days. But when it's all said and done, I will be a Texan in Techsys, as I like to say. So I'm very excited to kind of get this move behind me and get our new life started down. Getting my 10-gallon hat, my cowboy boots, and then get this party started.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet up with you when we're both in Texas. I am currently in a bunker in Colorado, getting out of the Austin heat. But hey, let's dive in here, and we are going to talk more about, I think people are wondering why Daniel's moving from Chicago, or as you say, the suburbs of Chicago, to the suburbs of Austin. But hey, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're the 6-5 podcast, and we named it because we do 6 topics, 5 minutes each, sometimes 10 minutes each, depending on how we're feeling about a topic.
We do what we want.
Exactly. It's our show. We do what we want. We talk about something until there's nothing left to talk about. And we don't necessarily do news, but we analyze the news to get underneath it. And sure, we talk about what it is, but it's really about diving in deep. And just as a reminder, we will talk about publicly traded companies, but don't take anything that we say as investment advice, just for educational entertainment purposes only. Daniel, let's dive into our first topic, which is, if you go to the next one, it's
you're the host.
Yeah, Microsoft Inspire announcements. There's 2 ones we're going to focus on. Daniel, if I can take the Windows 365 and you can take the Dynamics 365 and Teams data integration, I'd appreciate that. So Windows 365 is essentially remote desktop in the Azure cloud. That's it. That's the tweet. Okay. And the big deal here is that it's Microsoft, who, as you know, happens to own the Windows operating system as well, and a very healthy IaaS and PaaS inside of Azure. The concept of remote desktop is not new. In fact, I think the first time that I did it was almost 21 years ago. When I was at AMD, I had to remote desktop in for certain enterprise applications, and I had an old version of Windows there and an old version of Internet Explorer. Now, this is very different. And by the way, AWS offers this with workspaces. You have Citrix offerings. You have VMware offerings. Heck, even Frame and NetApp offer these types of things. Now, by me saying there are other offerings, that doesn't mean that it's boring and old. I liked a couple things that they did. So first of all, Microsoft is going to have a cost advantage because it has the operating system. Okay, nobody's going to talk about that, but that is the absolute truth. And it does come in because on all these other services, you have to pay for a license or you have to bring your own license. From what I gather from Microsoft, customers will have to pay for 2 licenses if they have a regular PC and if they want to go on vacation and use their iPad and not bring their Windows PC. This is for Windows 10 and it's for Windows 11. One of the cool parts is that security and management are integrated into the devices. So if you have an iPad or an Android tablet or an old PC, or you lost your PC and you're on a trip to Europe and all you have access to is the company hotel with a browser, you can essentially get that. One really unique thing that Microsoft told me but wasn't in writing anywhere that I could find is they're working on an offline mode. So all other remote desktop solutions, you get cut off, you're done. You can't work anymore, right? Microsoft is working on a method where if you get disconnected from the internet, which by the way, that's the backbone, one of the biggest challenges of remote desktops, it will actually save the state in a container. You'll be able to continue your work. I don't have details around that, but I think that's super exciting because it helps fix an issue that's been around for 25 years with all types of remote desktops. I haven't heard partners squeal yet, and there are ways for partners to get involved here. But with Microsoft having the operating system, they 100% have a leg up on everybody out there. I want to jump in and use this thing immediately. If nothing else, some sort of a fail safe that if I lose my device, I'm off doing something, I can get access to it, even though I'm syncing with OneDrive, OneNote, an Office 365. I like the notion of having a desktop there when I need it to use on an iPad or an Android tablet.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility that could be added about how you reach your desktop, where, on what device, and the use cases. It's as interesting as it will be useful to get some case studies and examples of where this really helps users day to day. This remote workforce that we're dealing with are really able to benefit from this new solution. Like you said, it isn't a new idea, but it's let's just say an improvement on an idea that has long been in the market. Man, I remember some remote desktop that I've used, and it's never been a great experience. So anything we can do to make this better would be super important. And speaking of remote work and teams, one of the other big announcements that Microsoft made that I leaned in on pretty heavily was this new Teams plus Dynamics 365 integration. And we've been hearing about this for a while. Over the last few months, we've heard Satya Nadella, we've heard Mark Benioff, all kind of talking about this operating system for remote work. And it's not going to be our email anymore. It's going to be in our collaboration platform. It's going to be in chat. So, what Benioff is talking about, Slack being their future, Microsoft has already driven over 145 million users onto its Teams platform. But it's all about connecting the way we work, the systems of record and the data, reaching our customers. And that's where taking Teams and connecting it to Dynamics 365 is such a big deal. So it starts with the fact that, and just everybody that's kind of trying to synthesize this needs to understand is Teams is going to be the epicenter of business. That's what Microsoft, that's the narrative that's being pushed. That's the idea. Not everybody knows how to use an ERP. Not everybody wants to use a CRM, but everybody is using that collaboration platform. So, you think about what's going on here. Well, now with Teams and D365 working together, you can basically take workloads, carry them forward, make important updates without someone having to access the actual systems of record, the Dynamics 365 platform. This is a convenience from a licensing standpoint because you used to have to actually give licensing or some sort of limited licensing to every user that you wanted to be able to have access. There's a lot of expense associated with that, and some people aren't doing very much in the platform. So now, for instance, a service rep, they can update a case record where they've added troubleshooting steps. You have financial teams. They basically can share a purchase order and payment details right in Teams without having to go into D365. Field technicians, that's a great one because it's not just knowledge workers. It can also be, you've heard Teams talk about field work. They can, flag, they could be on a cable technician, could be on site flagging end of life on a product, and it can notify a salesperson right through Teams that there's an opportunity to upsell a customer. So these are the kind of things that, serve as the use cases right now. In the end, Pat, what I like about it is I feel like it enables work to be done in a more comfortable, forgiving environment. It's got great tracking, notification, and management, and they've incorporated automation to make all that possible. So, I think these are some nice touches. I'm very interested in kind of hearing about adoption, use case. But if you're out there, figure whatever your chat platform is right now, it is going to increasingly become the epicenter of your everyday work. Microsoft is making this very clear, and as I believe the leader by use with over 145 million, they're going to drive a lot of what we see next. You're going to see the Cisco WebExes through integrations follow. You're going to see the Slack Salesforce story follow. Pretty solid announcements. I expect to see more integrations from the whole stack, whether that's business intelligence, the Power Platform, whether that's Azure integrations. It's just going to be more and more and more, and the teams will be the epicenter.
Yeah, it is amazing how Microsoft turned, Team. Everybody thought it was just going to be a chat platform to compete with Slack, and then it turned up to being the epicenter for collaboration, integrating Power Platform, D365. I mean, literally everything. Pretty impressive. Let's move to the next topic here. So, Oracle has an enterprise SaaS suite called Fusion. And they do quarterly updates, and they updated ERP and EPM and took the advantage to take a few more swipes at SAP and some customer takeouts.
Yeah, well, as we know, Oracle's never shy about calling out the competition. Starts at the top. Larry Ellison never misses a chance to claim a victory. It's kind of something that I find to be entertaining. I think the competition, we always talk about here, competition drives innovation. We all have different ways. Some of us are the humble types. Some of us are the more outspoken types. But yeah, so each quarter, and I've really enjoyed this, Steve Miranda, the EVP that runs the Fusion and basically all the apps businesses for Oracle, comes out and kind of talks about what's new. So this week there was a series of meetings, and somewhere in between me packing my house and moving, I was able to attend and listen in. So, as you know, there's Fusion, there's NetSuite, there's Oracle Cloud, there's lots of pieces. This particular go round, though, what I felt that Steve's focus was really on was kind of the Oracle's ML and AI efforts. I mean, this is a big topic. It's happening across the board. There was a series of announcements, a new AI-driven interface called the Oracle Digital Assistant. This can help, basically, when you're working in these tools, there's so much data, so many systems of record, so many screens. Remember that little Microsoft paperclip, the digital assistant? Well, just imagine now having that kind of capability within your systems of record to be able to find what you need to find quickly using, natural language processing, for instance. I'm just going to ask a question, it's going to work. They also made a series of other announcements, and an intelligent performance management platform, a risk management platform, a project management update. And of course, what Oracle does best, provided a series of customer wins and gave us the access to hear from these customers about what was going on. But, I'm not going to report on the whole thing. Again, 6.5, it's about analysis, not about reporting. But here's the long and the short of what's going on with Oracle. Oracle's migration to a SaaS platform is enabling a faster scale of the business. This is where growth is coming. You can listen to any of their quarterly earnings. 20 to 30+% growth is coming out of their cloud applications business. They're continuing to update it, to add it. They're making more and more ties from back office to front office. You love talking about that, Pat. I swear I said it first, but you've said it better. But we're bringing together the ERP, the CRM, the customer data platforms, the supply chain management tools. They've got all these things, and this layer of AI and ML is going to be a very important step for the company. They're not necessarily being credited with the same level as, say, a Salesforce or a Microsoft or some of the other players for the amount of investment and deployment of AI ML capabilities. But with all this flexibility with SaaS, with Oracle Cloud, with that sort of full vertical integration, barring a productivity collaboration suite, Oracle, they're really moving towards that full stack, and they're moving towards a system that can be quickly updated, that can have overlays of AI and ML capabilities. And by the way, it's just ripe for a acquisition of some type that's going to focus on this area of AI and ML, but they're building it, they're integrating it, they're adding it into their suite across their product platform. And I thought that was the most positive takeaway, was they're not just idling by. This is going to be an important part of their business going forward.
Yeah, a lot of this conversation reminded me too about, I was thinking, what the heck is Salesforce going to do, right? Oracle seems to be having a tremendous amount of success out there. And by the way, we'll put the caveat on the SAP stuff. SAP usually comes out a week later and says, hey, here are the customers we took away from Oracle, right? So getting to the bottom of all this is interesting. What is it? 30% growth that we're seeing in many of these applications, I think, is proof positive that Oracle is making a dent in this. And the full stack capability. It's funny. I've been in tech over 30 years, and it's almost like an accordion, right? You have aggregation and you have disaggregation, right? Where disaggregation are where best parts, right, that are integrated together is the way to go. And then the industry goes integration, where it's hard to differentiate on the piece parts, and it's a lot more valuable to put those together. Security, or in the same place, right? You've got all these point security products, but they're so much integration that enterprises have to do that sometimes they're 2 or 3 steps behind what the best-in-class software was, and that's why the security industry is going to more of an integration point, and companies like Microsoft and Cisco are taking advantage of that. And I'm sorry to digress, but you did a really good job capturing
You're entitled, sir.
the news itself. But hey, let's dive into something dramatically different here, and that is T-Mobile and a company called Halo announced a autonomous taxi service. Now, it's different than what you might think from an autonomous vehicle that you call it on your app like an Uber, and it would automatically take you there. With this system, first of all of the connectivity goes through 5G, and whether that's mapping, real-time mapping, whether that's any type of communication that the riders have to have with the service itself, but it's a half step. So we're at Vegas at CES, and we call Halo, right? And we put our app, and a Halo car comes, but we actually drive the car. Okay, but it comes with no driver in it. All right, and I know that's kind of a half step, but Halo's premises is that sure, the technology's there, but the social issues and the government mandates aren't there to get us there. And actually, they have a decent point. I mean, other than China, there are no robo-taxis that even exist out there, even though autonomous vehicles statistically are better drivers than humans, right? Because they can drive better at night, and they don't drink and drive. They don't look at text. They aren't distracted. They didn't drop their lipstick or their phone on the floor, and then they reach forward and then they have an accident. So it's a half step. It's an interesting one. I thought the 5G connectivity was interesting, and I'll leave that there. What I did want to talk about, I wanted to add, is the Ookla U.S. statistics came out yesterday and clearly showed what I knew. What happened is that T-Mobile and Qualcomm related to U.S. 5G would be on top. So every statistic except for one on 5G, and T-Mobile was maybe 1% away from Verizon, which was 5G consistency. T-Mobile won. It won on speed. It won on latency. And Qualcomm, by the way, it was a sweep. Qualcomm won on the chipset for all the top 10 phones out there. I'm not surprised. Nobody be surprised, but it should be affirmation. And I'm almost done. I want to do a victory lap and a pat on the back to Will Townsend, who's our 5G carrier analyst, where I guess it was 2.5 years ago, we had picked the carrier who was going to win the 5G race. We picked T-Mobile, and everybody's heads exploded. Verizon wasn't happy, AT&T wasn't happy, but we stuck to our guns because we saw the combination between Sprint and T-Mobile with the 3 levels of bands. Sprint brought mid-band, T-Mobile brought high band and low band, and it ended up being true. So, every once in a while, you got to do the victory lap. But congratulations to T-Mobile on Halo, and also pretty much sweeping the U.S. 5G.
So 30 seconds. One is haven't followed the Halo thing all that closely. So it sounds like a human out of the loop, human in the loop situation, where when the car's coming to you, it's empty. So if something happens, no risk. It can come to you fully autonomously. But when it gets to you, now the risk is that there's a human inside. They don't want to take that risk. Now you as the human take the machine back. Kind of a cool hybrid situation there, Pat. Regarding the T-Mobile thing, that's solid for T-Mobile. I'm a Qualcomm bull. Absolutely no surprise whatsoever. I don't even think there's a competitor. I really think I know there are competitors, but not really. Not at the high end. Not at the high end yet.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that the sweep was about the actual chipset as opposed to the modem, right? Because it what I would have expected, at least, of one of those phones would have had would have been an iPhone with a Qualcomm modem, but the whole sweep. So there's some magic that Qualcomm is doing in there. And oh, by the way, Apple doesn't use Qualcomm's RF solution, right? They're piece parting together kind of a Skyworks and a Broadcom and I think Qorvo solution. So interesting what you can see through the data,
Well, congratulations to all of them. You're the host. Keep us moving, buddy.
Yeah, let's move forward. Okay, in other enterprise SaaS announcements, Zoho came out with a pretty exciting self-service BI, and why don't you take this one, Daniel?
Yeah, no problem at all. I think what was really interesting about this, Zoho is, the operating system, Zoho One, the operating system for business, 50 apps in a single set of tools, really has a sweet spot in that small mid-market, of course, has found its way up the market into larger and larger enterprises. And this is just one more ad. And the company was really excited about it. And I had the chance to get demoed and briefed in advance on this thing and seeing how it works. I'll tell you this is the first thing, if you ever want validation from an analyst, I was watching them demonstrate how their self-serve BI platform worked. And the first thing I said to the guys, I need this. Like, I need to try this for my own business because it just looked so usable. And that's the one thing, in a lot of mid-market and smaller organizations, you don't have the manpower, the personnel. You don't have all the systems of record, the ability to use, dozens, if not hundreds of APIs, whether it's your QuickBooks, all the way up to a full integrated stack with something like a Zendesk, to be able to bring in all this data, to be able to visualize data, make decisions, and employ and deploy technology. So this self-serve BI is really all about, that low code, no code space that we're in, of giving more power and more democratization to more users that are business minded, that aren't necessarily technologically minded, to be able to pull from the vast systems of record and data sets and be able to create meaningful visualization that you can use in your business decision making. Zoho, once again, is simplifying the process, building key integrations. It's got marketplace integrations with this thing, everything from Shopify to ServiceNow, and in the Zendesk, Microsoft, MailChimp, Stripe, whatever you're using. And I like that too, because that's really goes back to that story of being able to support a small company all the way up to a large enterprise. Now, it's a private company, don't get a lot of visibility into specific revenues and growth, but their analytics business is growing in that 30 to 40% range. That is something they were willing to share. And that, overall, I just continue to be impressed. They're quietly yet, visible in coming out and sort of addressing a massive gap in the market, giving that end-to-end tool set that companies need and making it, like I said, making it usable, achievable, and implementable inside of companies of various sizes with various technical resources. So good on Zoho. Congratulations on the launch. I'm impressed. Continue to watch. And by the way, I intend to put this to the test. So I'll have to come back and let you know how that goes.
Ooh, I love it. That's interesting. Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't heard of Zoho up until 3 or 4 years ago, which, I'm a little embarrassed about. I'd really been focusing on some of the larger U.S. folks. But what I find just ironic is that Zoho is running the play that everybody wants to run right now. They did it before Microsoft. They did it before Oracle. They did it before Salesforce, which is essentially a full stack offering all the way down to the hardware, right? Which, by the way, unless Salesforce ends up buying an IaaS provider, we'll never get there. And the ability to tweak up and down. And some people think that Zoho doesn't do a lot of business in the U.S. and Western Europe. In fact, they do more business in the U.S. and Western Europe than they do anywhere else. They're just focused more on the mid-market and small businesses. What I wish I could talk about was some of the NDA slides that were provided that showed companies with big brands, by the way, that leverage Zoho's platform, and they white label it, brands that Americans would know. And I'm dying to tell you which one of these brands is in specific, but anyway, super impressive. You know, if the company would do a huge marketing push, I think it'd be scary to see what they can do. But you know, they're very happy with the methodical way that they're doing this. You know, they're doing a lot of smart digital marketing. They're not going out and, you know, leveraging an F1 or something like that. But they really let the product and kind of their method and their culture speak for itself. By the way, they're an Austin company. Just might want to add that as you're moving here to Austin. Hopefully, we can both spend more time with them now that we're post-pandemic. But Daniel, let's move to the next topic, and that is the Qualcomm Snapdragon Insider phone. Qualcomm took a little bit of heat about bringing this phone out. I feel like people were confused, so I'm going to try to clarify here. So first off, Qualcomm has a one-to-one consumer marketing program called Qualcomm Insiders, okay? And sometimes we don't fully kind of understand because we're in the US and people have iPhone on the brain, but Android is at least 75% of the global smartphone market. And that's not just because they're cheaper, but in other countries other than the US appreciate more what brands like, you know, Samsung, Oppo, and folks like that can bring to the table. And with that said, Qualcomm is getting out there and extending a program, and insiders get insight news before other people get it, and insights. And I got to tell you, I can tell you from having to market inside of China that they love that stuff. And you'll get crowds of tens of thousands of people out there, you know, lining up for stuff just because it's a Snapdragon. And we can't fully grok that here in the US. I understand that. And the other part of it is bringing out kind of special deals and special products. So Qualcomm partnered with Asus on a phone, which is basically doesn't actually have a name to it. But I think the first thing is people did is they bulked the price, okay, which is $1,500. Now, what this phone brings is the latest and greatest technology from Qualcomm, plus the best audio solution in the market, and these killer headphones to connect to it. So it has the best in connectivity. It has nearly the best in compute. It has the latest in quick charge with quick charge 5.0. The only feature that I wish it would have had would have been the under display fingerprint reader, but quite frankly, it didn't match up with the display. I'm told, and I totally understand it. But let me step back here. They took a lot of heat because of the specs, right? It doesn't have the Plus processor in there, and there were a couple other nits out there. I think that's completely missing the point. This is for insiders and not the general public. So, I wrote a pretty feisty, I wouldn't call it a response piece out there on Forbes, but really tried to set the record straight. So if you're interested, check that out. But good luck, and I appreciate Qualcomm trying to go direct with some of its customers. And no, it's not getting into the smartphone business, folks. Don't be confused. It needs its OEMs and ODMs for this. This is just part of some kudos and special insider opportunities.
Yeah, the long and short is simple here, Pat. Snapdragon is an immensely flexible and leading, capability platform, and vendors and OEMs and ODMs do make selections on the feature specs that they put into devices. Qualcomm, in spirit of partnership, probably guides but does not dictate, and nor should they. That would be problematic. But how they're used. This is an opportunity for the company to try to work to show the market what could be done if you took advantage of all the features, all the specs, all the capabilities of our most advanced, chipsets. So it's an interesting concept, Pat. And since Qualcomm really has a very little consumer recognition, it's a chance for people that reach out and that are influential at that consumer level to really talk about the fact that, going back to your T-Mobile commentary, that Qualcomm, when incorporated into the OEM and ODM devices that we know, creates a device that we like to use better. It's actually quite simple. The program will need to continue to evolve. This may not be the perfect application of it, but it's a starting point, and I expect to see more in the future.
Yeah. So hey, let's get to our next topic here, and that is, wow, the rumor. I'm sitting at dinner here in Colorado, and Intel possibly acquiring GlobalFoundries. What in the world is going on here? No, it was super interesting. In fact, I got called out on Twitter for not being out on Twitter quickly enough, which I found fascinating. It was by a journalist who I respect a lot, and that was pretty fun. But there is a rumor that came out of the Wall Street Journal that Intel would be acquiring GlobalFoundries for $30 billion, and which I find fascinating. And let's split this topic up. One thing I'm going to explain is that Intel does things differently than GlobalFoundries. And also, if you look at the global semiconductor market, even though leading edge, right, like 5 nanometer, 7 nanometer, and 3 nanometer get all the pages because of the big investment, that is not where most of silicon is produced. In fact, most silicon produced is 28 nanometer and below. Okay, and the reason we can't ship cars and Chromebooks and PCs is less about leading edge and more about I can't ship PC because my USB controller chip that's 28 nanometer I couldn't ship, or that one PMIC, that power management integrated circuit, which is done on 32 nanometer, couldn't ship. Okay, so we got to clear this up. And what GlobalFoundries does is they focus on those low power areas, like 5G RF. Okay, that needs specialty technologies to be able to operate. Needs a technology, or sorry, a material called FDSOI, silicon on insulator, to get that increased low power for IoT. They do silicon photonics, and yeah, I get Intel does it, but I guess my main point here is that GlobalFoundries does what Intel does not do, and does it, quite frankly, in a better way. This has never been Intel's target market to do these types of technologies. TSMC is in here, and On Semiconductor is with their own fabs for sure, but not Intel. So it's definitely additive if this is true.
Yeah, that's great analysis, Pat. And I always love when you dig into the geeky, nerdy stuff. Let's dive into photonics a little further. No, I'm kidding. Here's the thing. Let's talk about this from a market and a perception standpoint, since you kind of talked about the technology. Immediately the number came out about 30 billion as a possible price. Now, if you're not familiar with GlobalFoundries, they are a privately held company, but they're part of, I believe it's pronounced Mubadala Investment Co. Mubadala Investment Co. Based in Abu Dhabi. They do disclose some of their financials, so it's not completely private and withheld, but it's not the same transparency of data, financial data, as you might get if they were acquiring another U.S. corp. Kind of similar to the ARM and NVIDIA deal, where you're part of SoftBank's fund, and so you're getting some of the data, but it's a little bit different. The $30 billion is being looked at. I believe $5.7 billion was the 2020 revenue number for GlobalFoundries, actually down a little bit over the last few years. But as we know, there's a lot of things impacting the supply in the chip space. So is it all down because of demand, or is it down because of everything in the substrates and supplies and availability? Question marks all the way around. But I don't think the deal is being looked at through the lens of traditional multiple on earnings or a traditional multiple on revenue. I think the deal here is being looked at through a synergy. So you hit this on the head, Pat. What does this enable Intel to do that Intel couldn't do before a deal like this would be completed? We heard Pat Gelsinger come out during IDM 2.0. One of his big four announcements was IFS, was the foundry service and the expansion. You'd heard about multiple fabs being built across the US, Europe. We're dealing with not just a need for more chips, we're dealing with a need for more chips to be manufactured, not in Asia. So while GlobalFoundries does have a presence and is expanding its footprint in Singapore with, I believe, a $4 billion investment that it recently made in the fab, it has presence in the US, it has presence in Europe, and it has presence in the Middle East. It's got the capacity to manufacture the chips that, by the way, are causing inflation right now. They're causing supply chain delays right now. Like, you mentioned cars, Pat. It's not just about not getting cars. It's about not being able to afford cars. We saw, I think, automotive jump by, double-digit percentage, multiple months back to back with no end in sight to this. Does this deal fix that? Not entirely. Not like this will get done quickly. You and I both called out regulatory scrutiny. I think there's a really interesting parallel here. While the ARM NVIDIA deal and the Intel GlobalFoundries deals have nothing to do with each other specifically, they have everything to do with each other. And I really wonder if one could pass and not the other, if both deals are formed. And if one deal was given the go-ahead and one wasn't, what kind of turmoil that would cause within the antitrust and regulatory environment. And the last thing, Pat, I just want to point out as a fascinating factoid is GlobalFoundries was AMD's fab foundry business that it was spun off. I think, what is that, around 2008? Was that before or after you left, by the way?
No, it was when I was there. I was running corporate marketing when we did that.
So that was spun off, but AMD is still a really big customer of GlobalFoundries. I believe just signed like a $1.6 billion multi-year deal. And so I just have to wonder how AMD would feel about sourcing from Intel in the event that this deal was to be completed. Lots of question marks, but for Intel, I'll leave it on this, Pat. For Intel, this would be a really good deal. Now, all the other flags that go up and have to be looked at, that's going to be the question mark. But if Intel can get this deal done in that price range, it seems like it would be a winner for its long-term prospect in competing in that full stack in which it's been called out for not playing in recent times.
Yeah, the AMD is a good question, but every month the percentage of AMD out of GlobalFoundries goes down. They do some interconnects and they do legacy APUs for them, but all the future forward stuff in the last two generations of products have been primarily TSMC, with the exception of that bridge chip that they use to connect their chiplets together. Some of that's from GlobalFoundries and some of that's from TSMC. Great thoughts there, and I got to tell you, I don't see it happening. I see the IPO hitting, and I think this is probably some back channeling going on. But I got to tell you, there's no better awareness creator than an acquisition rumor out there. So, Daniel, let's go to our final topic here, which isn't an official topic, but
7.5. Yeah,
the 7.5. You are moving literally today from the suburbs of Chicago, not to be confused with Chicago. You're going to have to explain why you explain it like that, to Austin, who it's no secret, is having some challenges on its own. It's bringing in other famous people like you, like Joe Lonsdale, Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, right? But no, talk to us about this.
Yeah, so I mean, you and we've talked about it a little bit here and there. We've teased it here and there. I mean, long and short, amidst the pandemic, being settled in one place for a long time, we used to travel 47 weeks. You would be in and out. You were almost a visitor in your own home at different times. True. When you spend a year and a half almost completely in one place, it raises some questions about, where do you want to be? I've been in Illinois for 40 years. It's been a good run, but I want to be where the action is. And so, we've heard a lot about migration, and if you want to be where the action is in tech, there's several choices domestically. There's, of course, San Jose, San Francisco. There's Seattle. There's Austin. There's RDU, Raleigh, Durham. And then recently there's Miami. And so in the end, you're really looking at where the migration are, where are people heading, where are the patterns going, where are companies planting roots, where are they headquartering, where are CEOs, and venture is something you got to keep an eye on too. Where are the VCs going? Because those are what actually will stem the next wave of growth. And of course, where are your friends? Something to weigh in heavily too. But, after a lot of weighing for some time, me and the family decided that the right place for us to be is at high-tech research, advisory, consulting to the biggest tech companies in the planet, and talking, startups, tech, and opining is Austin, Texas. So, great tax environment. Property taxes are a little high, but anyone that's been to Illinois knows property taxes are a little high here. But you get the no state income tax. It's a business-friendly, environment. Tons of customers. I can't even tell you, Pat, how many customers have reached out to me already when they found out I was moving. I've got multiple in-person meetings within the first few weeks. You know how many physical customers that I have that are domiciled in Chicago that have an office? I mean, other than a few remote workers, zero. Not one customer that I would, that we do business with or we work on projects with that are in Chicago. So while I do expect travel to pick up and events to come back, I want to be somewhere where it's not just an event or getting on a plane and going and seeing 5,000 tech people at once. I want to be able to have lunch with people in the space. I want to be where the action is, and Austin is arguably, if not the place where the tech action is today and going forward.
Well, I'm glad you're coming, and I know, it's a really hard decision to move. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've been outside of Ohio for 25 years now, and I spent most of that in Texas. And I think you'd be happy with it, particularly where you're moving into the suburbs, where Austin City Council and the mayor have a lot less influence. You have your own police force. So, I mean, it's a great place. As we've talked, I kind of did the opposite. I'm downtown now, and I'm regretting it a little bit. But I've got a place that I can hide at near a lake that I'm blessed to have, and the family needs, because sometimes we just got to get out of downtown. But no, I'm really excited for you to come in, and who knows what trouble we can get into while we are here, and who knows?
Good kind, Pat. The good kind.
No, of course. And I'm wondering if maybe the 6'5" we're actually in the same room together.
It'll be a lot of fun, my friend. So great show, though, buddy. Appreciate the chance to share this with the world, and I appreciate all you.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's so is imitating life. I mean, most of the people who left San Francisco came to Austin, Texas. So Texas,
see them all there.
So with that, we are now the 7-5. Now we're going to rename the show. But no, I appreciate everybody sticking with us. If you liked what you heard, you want to hear it all the time, hit that notification button and go in there and hit always, and you will be alerted on YouTube when a new video comes through. We are also available, if you're listening by audio, on all of the popular podcast distribution out there. So we really appreciate you. If you like what you heard, you can hit me up on Twitter. If you don't like what you heard, you can hit Daniel up on Twitter, and we can try to hit your needs. So with that, thanks a lot, and have an incredible weekend.